Here is yet another round of fun and easy skateboard tricks. So this was originally going to be another curb stalls video, and then it was going to be an easy tricks video, and then I thought, hey, why not just combine the two? So be prepared to see a little mix of both. Up first, we have the Footplant. For this one, you're rolling towards an object and you pop an ollie, except you take your back foot off, plant it on the object, and then hop off back onto your board. The only thing you need to know for this one is how to ollie, and you also want to make sure that you can clear the object that you're going to try to footplant on. So the first step to this one is learning how to take your back foot off when you do an ollie. And you can just practice this on flat at first. You basically just do a normal ollie, and your front foot carries through and slides up the nose like normal. But when you're first popping down with your back foot, it just comes off to the side and goes straight to the ground. So I would suggest getting comfortable doing this motion first and just landing with your front foot. And when you're comfortable with that, you can practice the same thing, except hopping back off your back foot and landing back on the board. After that, we can start practicing on the obstacle itself. For this, you're going to be doing the same exact motion, and you're just going to want to practice taking your back foot off and landing on top of the object. The other thing you can practice to get used to the feeling is setting your board down on the other side, and then taking a few steps, hopping off the object and landing on your board. From there, it's just a matter of putting all these movements together and actually trying it on the obstacle. And then hopefully with enough practice, you should be able to ollie, take your back foot off and plant it on the object, and then hop back off and land on your board. For trick number 2, we have the corner stall. Now this one's just a 50-50 stall, but you're doing it on the right angle where two curbs meet. It may seem pretty easy, but it can actually be a little challenging to lock both trucks into each curb. For this one, knowing 180s can help, but really all you need is to be able to do a 90-degree ollie. Also, if you know how to do regular 50-50 stalls on a curb, that can really help too. So this one's pretty self-explanatory. You just need to find that point where two curbs meet, and then you roll at it, ollie up and turn 90, and lock both of your trucks in. Because of the angle of the curbs, it should be pretty easy to actually balance when you get into this. And then from there, coming out is just like a regular 50-50 stall. You slightly press down and turn front side. So yeah, this one's pretty easy, but it can be a lot of fun. Up next, we have the Fakie 180 tail block. Now a tail block is kind of like a 5-0, but your nose is lifted up even more, so you're only on your tail. So with that in mind, for this one, we're rolling Fakie, leaning down and grabbing your nose, lifting up onto your tail and turning 180. This one also seems really easy at first glance, but getting the timing right of actually leaning down and grabbing your board and then lifting up and turning can be a little tricky at first. All you really need to know for this one is Fakie frontside pivots. So as I mentioned, instead of having your tail and your wheels down, you're only going to want to be on your tail. So the main thing to practice is while standing still, get into that tail block position. Do this by essentially standing like you would for a manual and lifting the nose up, but then grab the nose, shift your weight back, and lift your board all the way up onto your tail. Now also while standing still, do this same movement, but try adding in the frontside 180. And then once you're comfortable with this, you're just going to want to start trying it while rolling Fakie. If you're having trouble with the timing of grabbing and turning, you can practice the same move but with a pivot instead of a tail block, and then work your way up into the full trick. For trick number 4, we have the Shove It Boardstall. This one is exactly what it sounds like. You roll up to a curb, do a pop shove it and land in board stall, and then come out. The obvious things you'll want to know for this one are pop shove-its and board stalls on curbs. And something that's important to note is you'll want to be able to do pop shove-its that actually get above the curb rather than those ones that slide on the ground, or else your board will probably just hit the edge of the curb. Now there isn't really too many practice steps to this one other than making sure you have your shove-its and board stalls down. The main thing you're going to want to do is practice getting into the board stall from the shove-it. And you can practice doing this with one foot at first, but the main thing here is making sure that you get the clearance and the rotation over the curb. Once you have that down and you can land on the board, the second half is the easier part where you just pull off to the side and come out of it. So yeah, pretty self-explanatory, but pretty fun. For our next trick, we have the Cigar Flip. Now this one could have been included in my cool ways to get on your board video, but it wasn't, so here it is. Now this one's kind of a weird backwards impossible hop-on kind of thing, but it's actually really easy. For this one, you just stand in front of your board with it in primo position and the grip tape facing you. And then using your back foot, you kick into the nose and wrap it around like an impossible and then jump on. This one's not too bad, and it's mainly trial and error over anything else. There's not really anything you need to know beforehand other than being comfortable on your board. So basically just set your board up like I am here, and then you want to kick backwards into it with the heel of your back foot, and this should cause the board to sort of start to wrap around, and you just have to follow it around with your foot in a circular motion, and once it comes around, you just jump on. The only thing to watch out for on this one is making sure your back foot kind of gets into the pocket and isn't too far towards the nose or the center of the board. So just practice the motion a few times, landing with only one foot, and then finally when you're comfortable, do the whole thing and jump on with both. For trick number 6, we have the 180 to 5-0 revert. Now this one sounds more complicated than it actually is. What you're doing is rolling at a curb, doing a 180 and landing at Fakie 5-0, and then following through and turning front side to come out. The tricks you should know before this one are frontside 180s, 50-50 stalls just to be comfortable on a curb, and it really helps to know 5-0 stalls. So the first thing to practice with this one is on flat ground, doing frontside 180s and landing on your tail. This will get you comfortable landing with all your weight shifted on one foot. And the next thing you can practice is doing the 180 into a 50-50. From here, it's just a matter of doing the 180 and landing with all your weight shifted like you did when you were on flat. This can feel a little scarier since you're on a curb, but if you lock in right, then it shouldn't feel too different. After you've gotten the first half down, you can practice coming out separately by getting into the 5-0 position and turning frontside. And then once you're comfortable with all the pieces, you can put them together into one full trick. For trick number 7, we have the Mike Mo half flip. Now you'll probably think this one's kind of stupid, but Mike Mo did it in a game of skate against Chris Roberts, and I had to add it to the list. All you're doing for this one is doing half a kickflip and landing on the board upside down, and then using one of your feet to press down on your wheels and flip the board back over. All you need to know for this one is kind of how to do a kickflip. Basically, the lower and slower that you can flip them, the better. But even if you can't do full kickflips, this is only half a flip, so you should still be able to try it. So the thing I actually found the hardest was not over flipping the board when I try to flip it over. And to do this, I took my normal kickflip position, but I put my front foot further onto the board and further up towards the nose so it would get a slower flip. From there, you just practice doing half flips and landing on the graphic of your deck. And now the flipping over part, which is probably a little easier, is done by putting your foot over one of your wheels and pressing down to build up pressure, and then you jump up and let the board flip over. This part can be a little finicky depending on how tight or loose your trucks are. If you press down too hard, then you may overflip the board, or vice versa. And once you get that part down, you put everything together, do a half a kickflip and land on the bottom of your board, and then press down on the wheel to flip it back over. And for our final trick, we have the 270 tail stall. Now this one's definitely the hardest one on the list, but it's also my favorite one to do. For this one, you're rolling with a curb at your backside, and then you pop a frontside 270 and land in tail stall, and then turn out of it. For this one, you need to know frontside 180s, and also being comfortable both getting into and out of a tail stall can help. You'll want to start off by over-rotating some 180s and trying to get into 270s. This can feel weird at first, but the more you can over-rotate, the better. And for me, when I'm trying to rotate a 180 faster, I take my back foot and put it deeper into the pocket. The next step is to try to actually get the board up onto the curb, and I recommend practicing the full rotation, but only landing with your back foot on the curb. After practicing this a few times, you should start to get a feel for how fast you need to rotate and where the board needs to be. And finally, you can start adding that front foot on and trying to actually do the full trick. A couple things I've noticed that can happen with this one are that you don't get the full rotation, so you sort of land on your trucks, or your nose isn't lifted high enough, so your wheels hit the ground when you land in the tail stall. These are pretty minor though, and fixing them is just some trial and error. So this video was just kind of a weird mix between fun and easy, and then some slightly harder tricks. Like always with these videos, I try to cover a broad range of different styles of tricks. So hopefully you can find one that appeals to you, and then you can go out and learn it. As I've said before, skateboarding is all about fun, so as long as you're having a good time while you're doing it, then you should be good. As always, I'd like to thank my wonderful Patreon pledgers. And I'd like to thank you for watching, and you can like and subscribe if you want.